full stack product management. So the end of product management as we might know it. Why do I claim that this way? Because I think with the current developments, what we have in the market with artificial intelligence, with a complete new way of thinking about how products might be developed and also managed and discovered, this could really bring a huge change into this whole sector. And we already see that in the industry currently going on. And before I go into a bit the future outlook, I want to have a bit of a view on what are current problems if we look in product management, right? And obviously there are many things happening in terms of problems, but what I find quite significant, and there are various studies around that, and these are some numbers I found from a study which I can link then in the show notes as well of the video, that 56% of product managers who have been asked here actually struggle with competing objectives. So if you look at product management, you have objectives from the business side, maybe from management, you have objectives from the customer who also expect something from you. Then you have still technology on the other side, which expects to clean up maybe technical depth or, implement the newest hypes. And you have so many various objectives, which you as a product manager now struggle to bring all under one umbrella. And that's a very big challenge. What people have if they are product managers, which makes it very hard to be also good in it, because you need to juggle all these things parallel. Another thing which is quite interesting to see if you look at the numbers here is that also people really struggle with their role clarity and obviously with insufficient time, because product management is a very demanding job. It's a very challenging job. To bring all the facets of product management under one umbrella. And that's why I'm, claiming here a bit that product management as we know it is maybe unsustainable in future, because we have all these various facets of product management. I'm going to explain them now in a second, how I see product management and the role of product management, which might then lead to competing priorities, to insufficient time in managing everything very well, and actually lead to a very overwhelmed product manager. If I work with teams and product management departments, these are the most busy people and often very close to a burnout scenario and under constant pressure from all the sides. Which makes it a very, very tough job, right? So maybe things are changing also to support this role better in future and leverage it so that actual product management role, solving problems, can come more in the focus again. And let me jump a bit into it, what I see if you want to have, or if you want to create products that are successful. Right? If you are a product manager, you're somewhere in the middle of all these areas. And that's probably also where, the term of full stack comes from. If you look at full stack development, you're thinking about things like front end, back end, data sources, also infrastructure. And in product management, you can see that very similar. You have various domains, things like user needs and problems. So my client, my customer, understanding my personas and all the topics in there. But you have also product and technology. So very deep things. How is my product built? How is it structured? What technology do I use? So all these different domains. And as a product manager, you are expected to juggle all these domains, or at least be a very good link between all of these domains. That's why I always say product management is a massive communication job, because you need to bring all these things under one hood and build from all this input, from all the objectives, from all the sides that want something from you, a successful product, which obviously makes it very challenging, as we saw in the first slide, because now we have conflicting interests. Give you an example. If you look at legal side, that can be, very restricting, but on the marketing side, you want to promote especially that feature, which might be a legal constraint. So you have these trade-offs to make, and it's a tough job to be in all these various facets. But that's what product management is, right? And good product managers just do that very well. They think from the user need, they understand the problems, they come up with solutions, They test, they trial, they build prototypes, they learn quickly, come to a more stable solution, think about the marketing, think about the sales potential, and then actually create business value out of that. Nevertheless, what I observed now, especially due to AI, it becomes a bit of a more of a shift, because if you're in this position here now and think about being in that role, you need to juggle hundreds of balls parallel, right? And you cannot be good in everything in perfection, which makes it very challenging. So I want to touch a bit point on how I see that role of product management in this full stack perspective shifting in future. And if I think about product management, and that's a tiny example before we go into these thoughts I have around the future, I think always about building great products and successful products which actually solve problems. And that should be always the starting point, right? Whether you call yourself product manager or product owner, there's a problem, there's a need from any user, from a client, and you want to solve that issue. No worries, Maru. Welcome. No problem that you're late. We're talking about product management today and how it's going to develop from my perspective. So if we're thinking about solving a problem for a user, then we think about creating, and that's very important to understand from a mindset perspective, because I believe this will come way and way more in focus in future. We're thinking about value we need to create for somebody, whether it's value based on the product or a service, but we want to create a special outcome that has an impact on solving the problem or satisfying a certain need. I have an example in a second for you. So just to understand the difference, if you're looking from a product management perspective, you should always strive for outcome bigger than output. What do I mean with that? Rather than putting feature after feature after feature out, which probably doesn't create so much value for your users or for your clients, we need to actually understand what are the problems and the needs my user have, so that I can create value for them. And that's unfortunately a tendency I saw over the last years, right? That we create massive amounts of features, that we create here the next new red button, here the shiny thing, but without actually asking us, is that really creating value for the user and for the business as well? Because developing a feature costs money. We need to earn also money on the other side with our products. And does that actually increase revenue? So just to understand the difference, outcome versus output, and I'm a huge fan of the left side, creating value and then building the right feature to deliver this value. And that's a perspective product managers should have. And that obviously is then very challenging if I'm in the middle of all these various facets, because they all want something from me, and they're all pulling on me, and I'm trying to build the best possible product for the user and for the business. I have an example for you, actually two examples, because for me it's really hard to understand that outcome output topic, and I hope it makes it a bit more concrete to understand that. If I think about outputs in terms of health, right? There are tons of various outputs. I can buy great sneakers, running sneakers. I can, have healthy food. I have pills. These are all products, features, things that can be bought, that can be produced, that can be developed, output, right? But focusing on and understanding user needs on the left side would be, I want to be fit and healthy. I want to lose weight. I want to, and these are the problems, the needs of the user, where I need to first understand to then create various outputs behind. I have a cool example from Bellroy. Maybe you know Bellroy, the brand. They're doing various backpacks and wallets and stuff travels and so on. And they came up with that slim sleeve, and that was very good example for me from a product management perspective. Why? Because they came from the actual user pain, understanding the user need. And if you look on the left side, their way and their product management was thinking about, okay, why do have men actually back pain? I mean, they did various surveys and various studies in a certain age group, And it became clear because of the wallet, where men just often have in the back pocket and sitting, the back is crooked, and therefore we have back pain, and that leads to various, other problems. So the idea was to build actual product to solve this problem and reduce back pain. And that's then obviously the output which has been created. Slim wallet or slim sleeve, I think they call it. And if you go on the webpage, you have even the slider and saying like 2 credit cards and make it smaller and less back pain. And that's a very, very outcome and pain driven perspective, which at the end, product management and building products is all about. So, and now we are at that point where like, does that change? Will that change in future? I don't think so. I believe that it becomes even more important because users expect this value. So the big question is, what is happening when we look about product management, and what does happen to that concept of the product manager in the center of all these different domains that want something from me, the full stack product manager? What is changing so drastically in product management from my perspective? And I personally have some thoughts and ideas around which I want to share with you now. If if you have questions, if you want to comment something on that, just drop it in the chat. So the first thing, what I believe is that when we think about the full stack product manager in the future, it will become a way more end-to-end product leader. It will be a person covering, as said, the areas of customer, of business, of tech, but it will need to become a person and a role that thinks really end-to-end, from customer through the delivery to the operations back to the customer, which also includes now that a product manager will have in future maybe more responsibilities, strategic responsibilities, such as revenue control or direct revenue impact or direct accountability on creating the revenue. What we often see in big corporates is that you have strategic objectives outlined from C-level or upper management, and they're brought towards product management, and they just need to fulfill and check these boxes without actually being accountable for the revenue and for the delivery and for the success. I think that's going to change, and I tell you now why. Because with AI, we enable product management to actually become full stack product managers. Currently, you can be a very good full stack product manager if you have long experience, if you have a lot of seniority, if you understand all the things, but you have so many manual and parallel things to manage, which due to AI will help us to reduce the manual load and increase the actual product management work, understanding user needs, look for the outcome, and build the right output. And if I look at that, the question is, what role does AI play in that whole product management scenario? And I see a couple of options, which you can, from my perspective, basically boil down to the following 2 things. The one is using AI for your role as a product manager in my company, right? Supporting me in my things and my daily to-dos and my daily work as product manager to make a better product management job, to be more efficient, to automate tasks which are currently done manually, to optimize the process, etc. On the other hand, I can integrate AI as a piece, as a function, as a feature in my products or services. Also, a thing a product manager needs to keep in mind. And these are these 2 parts. But I think especially due to the left side, using AI for my role in product management, we'll see a massive enhancement and a massive shift in how a product manager will in future orchestrate his or her work. Because I believe AI agents will play a big role, and I see that currently with various clients who already started working with that, and have some examples and pictures and ideas around that in a second. And I also believe that the actual human superpowers, which I will share with you in a minute, are coming again more in the foreground, because we as humans have a lot of good capability and good superpowers, which we currently cannot fully do in our product management work, because we are also drowning in a lot of things that are actually not creating value at the end for the user or for the business. And that's everything where AI can support me in my product management role very well. If you're talking about AI, and that's a bit of a short, excurse. I don't know if everybody's aware of that and understands the same layer how I see the world. That's why I want to share that with you, because that's easier to understand in a second than what I mean with agents and applications. So I see these three big things if we talk about AI. I see in the middle our large language models, right? So we have various models such as GPT 4.0, we have from Elon Musk, we have Grok, we have Gemini and whatsoever. And they're all very specific trained. They're very good in various things to do tasks rather broader or also very narrow. There's, for example, a model. We have quite some clients in the biotech sector. And when it comes to product development and product management in biotech, there's a model AlphaFold 3. Maybe you heard about that already. I think 4 is coming out soon as well. It's about designing protein structures. And if you think about how currently drugs are developed, so new products are developed, it's going into the lab. It's a wet lab. It takes time to test in the lab. And then from there on, you're going into a trial, you test it out in the field, which can take years and so on. And with this large language model, and then with this trained model behind for protein structures, you have now the chance to actually communicate with that model and test all the protein changes and do your product development on the screen without the lab and test way quicker, way faster. That's one example. But the important thing is here that we have various large language models, and how do we access them? Through sort of AI applications such as ChatGPT, Gemini, and Co. Right? I mean, you all use them, you all know them, but they provide interfaces for us as human to interact with these LLMs. Whatever we can do in all these nice toolings, some deliver more, some deliver less options, but those are the application interfaces on the left side. And on the right-hand side, we have our AI agents. And AI agents also use the large language models at the end. And now the interesting thing is that they are autonomous. They can do decisions based on what I give them and what I tell them. So they are there to fulfill a very specific need. And when we bring that now back into the context of product management, there are tons of AI agents, I could imagine, to support me and my daily work and product management very efficiently, to take stuff over for me. So I can actually focus on my job, understanding problems, building good products, and solving needs, right? And that's where I see the journey going to. The problem is that I think we need to learn to actually describe very well what we need from these AI agents. And that's a tricky part. If you just let them do something based on your large language model and let them do whatever happens, you won't get the outcome as you want to have it for your specific company, for your specific role, for your specific problem, for your specific products. So that's why I always like to show the structure to leverage actually AI in product management. So if you think about coming to the idea of building up agents for product management, which support you, for example, in finding a product strategy, for constantly reviewing the market and analyzing user needs and structuring this for you and bringing it into your, into your inbox and preparing it for you so you get market insights, you'll need to run through these various steps from our experience. The first thing what you will need to do is you need to define a master prompt, which describes the role that agent should be in. So for example, as a product manager or as a specialist for market research, if you're building, let's say, a product, let's stay with the physical product we had before, the sleeve, the wallet, you could describe that role very well. Your job is being a product manager for your briefcases, whatever it is. Your customer segment is mainly Europe. and so on and so on, to understand the role very specific, the job description. And that's your master prompt, where you define who and why you're doing that whole thing, to generate revenue, to have these business objectives fulfilled, etc., etc. That's setting the frame for your specific agent on the side of who and why. And then as a next step, you need to come up with a system prompt, which defines the what and how. And if we think now in our product management domain, you can come up with various things, right? You could define clearly how you outline normally product strategy, how you formulate as product strategy, what you expect from the agent, that they do it for you, how your product strategy is normally outlined so they can update it, learn from it, and work with it, or your product roadmap or marketing analysis or market, whatever it is, right? Even prototyping, etc. But that clearly defines what you expect from the agent and the role, as you described it before, to do. And then you come up to a very nice thing, which are custom GPTs. Maybe use them yourself. You can set up custom GPTs in ChatGPT, in any of these actually interfaces, which I just showed you now. Copilot recently released also the Copilot, how do they call it? And Forum Copilot Studio. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. And there you can also set up custom GPTs, and you can even include these tiny custom GPT in your MS Teams, where you can start chatting with your specifically described and designed custom GPT, for example, for market analysis of your product, which makes it extremely narrow and trains it over time very, very well, which is great. Because if you have this defined, you can now set an agent on top and let that stuff do for you, right? And that's, I think, where we now see a big shift. We see in product management that use for using agents in amplifying human capabilities and supporting it with collaborating together as a product manager. And as I said, there are various agents already out there for product management, and it's pretty easy to design them yourself when you know what your master prompts are, what your system prompts are, and how you can build up the storyline. So in terms of agents, there are two wordings, and I don't want to go too much in detail here before I jump to the other slides, just that you heard about it. They're vertical and horizontal AI agents, right? And I believe especially the vertical ones, which are built for a domain, very focused, specific task, based on your input, on your master and system prompts to specialized workflow, create me the product roadmap outlined based on our product strategy, do regular marketing analysis, etc., etc. These will leverage product management enormous, because go back to the starting point. I'm right in the middle of all these various facets, right? And I need to handle them all. Imagine I have my agents to support me handling them, so I can bring it together and orchestrate all of this. And that's actually where I see the journey going, because I personally believe, and we have a client where this is already happening, that product management comes more and more in this role of orchestration, not in the sense of that the product manager will be the dumb person standing in the middle and just clicks agent A, B, and C, but in the sense of the product manager can focus more on using the human brain and the human capabilities, the human superpowers, supported by all my agents around, obviously collaborating with other human beings, but collaborating with these agents to utilize the power of AI in a fast changing world. And as you see here, some examples from monitoring agents. I mean, if my product, let's stay with a digital product, is in the market, I need to run operations, I need to monitor what's going on. I maybe want to also monitor user behavior, what's happening in there. If you did yourself maybe user behavior analysis manually, you know how much effort it is. With built-in AI agents in your products, you will get constant, omnipresent user feedback. These are new ways of resources which we currently don't have. So that's a bit my perspective of the full stack product management will actually be enabled through all the AI which is happening around there. So I don't see replacing our product manager. No, I strongly believe that we have human superpowers, which I just want to outline in a minute. But they will be accelerated if we use agents around that to manage products better, to build at the end great products to solve user needs. So, and when I talk about human superpowers, and I'm actually preparing that for a talk which is coming up soon, and I started putting this now here a bit into the slides. I see three big human superpowers, especially in the context for a product manager, and I think they will become more and more valuable in the next years again, because these are things which I personally believe are very hard for AI to replicate, and which are for a product development so needed. And the first human superpower is contextual intelligence, from my perspective. We are humans, and we understand contexts completely different than AI. We need to give AI context to understand in which frame we are. We need to describe AI. You are a product manager in this role, supposed to develop this product in this market, etc. But we as human beings, we have the ability to understand whether it's cultural, social, emotional nuances where AI is struggling with, right? If you're building a product and you want to introduce it, the same product, into another market, for example, from Europe into the African market, you as human will quickly realize the cultural differences, the tiny nuances, what you might need to adopt. And these are things, that's an intelligence, which helps building great products. We have a consciousness as human beings, right? And that creates some sort of meaning, and it's not just seen as data for us. And I believe, especially when we want to build good products which are focused on outcomes, on solving problems, we need that meaning, because that creates value at the end. I have an example in mind. If you think about your favorite food, I don't know what it is, maybe it's pizza, right? You don't just eat pizza, and you don't just see it as, chemical compounds of, I don't know what chemical compounds pizza is made of. Flour is probably starch, and we don't see it that way. We experience eating pizza completely different. We smell it when we have the first bite, we have a taste, we feel the structure, and that's contextual, intelligence. We maybe remember where we ate the first pizza back in Italy somewhere, maybe where I also, met somebody nice. It was a nice evening. That puts that whole thing into a context. And that whole thing is very much needed if I need to build great products, because people always act in a context, and they need that product in a specific context. And if I understand that as a human being very well, I can use that as a superpower to create and build great products. That's superpower number one, I personally believe. The other superpower, I think, which will become, again, very important, is adaptive resilience. I think humans and we are great in working with incomplete information. We can make some storyline out of, something is missing. We have intuition, we have experience, we have a gut feel, and we bring that together to create some sort of logic, some sort of, story out of that, which is an advantage, because we can improvise on the way, and not just rely on trained data sets like AI does. Yes, obviously AI is also learning based on what we give into it, right? And that's a huge thing, because think about building a product. We need to quickly fail. We need to learn. We need to adapt on the way to make it actually valuable for the user. And that's something where we humans are good at. And personally, I'm a windsurfer. And that's just one example which comes up in my mind there as well, what I mean with resilience. And if you're standing on a windsurf board and you windsurf in the wave, every millisecond is different. You need to adapt all the time. The wind is suddenly turning, the wave is suddenly getting bigger than you expected. Suddenly there's no wind, you need to lean forward, you need to lean backward. And that's not just something we do because we think about it. That's intuition. That's more than, have in a logic in your brain. And that is very, very helpful when it comes to building great product. As said, because we learn quickly what users need, we can adapt, and we then come closer to the actual value for the user. And that's something I think we will see in future also as a very important human superpower combined with AI. And the last one I wrote down here is, I think, what it's all about when you look in building products is creative problem solving. And I believe that we have the ability to identify what actually needs solving in the first place. Whereas, not solving a predefined task like AI, obviously maybe AI is for enhancing to get further there, but we understand and see things that need to be solved because we have the creative mindset and the ability. There was actually an interesting MIT study, and you can look for that. Probably you heard about it. They scanned brains of people using AI, ChatGPT, and not using it, and then measuring afterwards also which zones are impacted in the brain and which zones are stronger working and which zones are not stronger working. And people who first used their own creative mindset and started by thinking and struggling with the problem themselves and came up with creative solutions, they had stronger brain activity in all these creative linked networks than coming the other way around. And the actual solutions out of that were more impactful and more valuable. And that's what I want to say here. I think the edge is that we have the ability to connect the dots with missing information and come up with things that need solving at all, which AI probably can't yet. But here's the cool thing then. We can use AI, especially then, to enhance and amplify all these of the three human superpowers, to build better products, to be faster, to do manual things, and support us in the role. And with these powers and these three human superpowers, I think the concept of product management shifts to more towards the orchestrator, using human superpowers, bringing around all the AI agent together and get more into actually being able to be a full stack product manager, and managing all juggling things in all these different contexts, what are expected from me as a product manager. So if I look at my own personal thoughts, now coming to the end of this input, I think I see some parameters changing, and I just try to summarize them again here a bit. AI will take over the manual PM work. I'm 100% convinced, and if we don't accept this, it's a big problem, because then we are facing we're facing a lot of problems at our company, and even questioning if we are still capable of building the right products. But we have these human superpowers, which makes it more and more important. And there are other studies which is quite interesting. Teams, product management and product teams who start implementing and using AI agents for automizing, for manual work, they are focusing more on these human capabilities. They are growing, and they are more productive in producing the right outcomes. And that's quite interesting direction. So that's one thing I believe will be very important, that we need to understand, build the right agents to automate what you can in all your manual things, and use the agent as delivers coworkers for you, so you can use your superpowers and make the right decisions based on that. Which leads to the next thing that I think we need to very much learn on: how to effectively work between AI and human, how to interact, how to write the right prompts, how to actually speak with AI so that we can get what we need. That comes back to, we need to understand how to write proper prompts, master prompts, system prompts, how to write custom GPTs, how to build custom GPTs and use them, so that AI actually becomes a co-worker for us in our product management and product journey, and we can, conversate and accelerate through it. Interestingly enough, I believe also, that's my personal thought, that we'll see a shift rather away from that time to market, quick, be out fast, more towards time to value. What do I mean with that? People are seeking for valuable results, for valuable products, for solving problems, that outcome focus, right? And I think a good metric for the future is how long does it take to actually deliver value for the user? And yes, defining value is difficult, but I think that's something we need to investigate, learn, and understand in the product management scene quite a lot. As said at the beginning, and on this slide, I believe that product managers, full stack product managers of the future, will be end-to-end product leaders, as they're supposed to be already now, but it makes it very challenging because it's a lot. But unfortunately, I don't often see that product management is actually accountable for revenue, actually owning the revenue of the product. And I think that would be a very much needed shift. And I see some sort of developments in this direction where you have clear accountability to drive growth based on being bound to revenue, right, with your product, to be held accountable for revenue with the products you're building. And I think that's a direction where product management comes even more into the strategic direction, into the strategic part where we maybe currently are a bit decoupled from. And last but not least, what I already teased before a bit, I think customer feedback will be handled different in future. Currently, we do surveys. We need to talk to people, what we probably still continue doing. But it's not an omnipresent, not an all-around time, continuously feedback what we have from our products. And if we're building technical products, I think it's a huge opportunity to come up with built-in agents to understand customer behavior, customer feedback, whatever it is, because that gives me immediate insights on how to create more value for my users and build better products. All right. That was a bit of my input around product management and the future of product management, full stack. As I said, full stack product management will be, I think, even more enabled through the whole developments we see here based on AI. I just can encourage everyone to use the human superpowers we have and build great products.